Today's episode of the Fro Wrestling Podcast, this is the pilot episode of the Fro Wrestling video podcast. We are here to review WrestleMania 33. I know all of you guys that are thorough, devout listeners to the Fro Wrestling Podcast. I can't thank you enough. Finally, we're getting some video going. We're going to start off running down the match card. It was a crazy night. If it's just my opinion, that pay-per-view took way too long. I know the card was stacked top to bottom. There was not a weak card on the show, but that doesn't mean that if you're that guy who shows up in the arena at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, looking forward to the 5 o'clock kickoff, all the stuff that goes on, the glitz, the glamour of WrestleMania, there's too much. When you get to a 7-hour show, that's just too much. I can't imagine the people who showed up early who brought kids with them. What a crazy show. Anyways, to the matches. We're going to get started. We're going to go relatively quickly. With this being our first video production, we want to make sure we give you enough time to get through. We got to get through all the matches, and we want to make sure that we have enough time that we can also put out our normal podcast episode, which will be available on iTunes, Spreaker, Stitcher, Podcast, Podbean, all those ones that they typically are out on. But we want to get this up on YouTube so you guys can start putting a face to that voice that you hear all the time, especially now that we got that global audience that's been tuning in. Thank you to our global community. It means the world to us. First match of WrestleMania. I said this. I was sitting there with some friends watching the show. I got very frustrated. I told my buddies, I said, you know what? This match should be on the main card. This match could be the match of the year. And it could have stole the show. If they were given a little bit more time, they probably would have stolen the show. People still filing into the crowd, and some people didn't even get a chance to see this match. Neville versus Austin Aries, a match that for someone like me who is a hardcore Ring of Honor fan, I'm a big time TNA fan, even though they've been terrible lately. Going back to their inception, I've been a huge TNA guy. This was an opportunity to let two guys, Neville and Austin Aries, really showcase what they can do and show people true wrestling, something you don't get to see anymore. It's just not as prevalent as it used to be. This match, tons of high spots. You had to love the finish, seeing the eye gouge. It almost looked like Neville was like digging his fingers into the eyes of Austin Aries to pick up the win here. I really was looking forward to seeing the Red Arrow as a finisher rather than this Rings of Saturn thing he's been doing for quite a while now. I'm over that. You know, that's Perry Saturn's thing. I don't need somebody copying Perry Saturn. I like the Red Arrow. It's unique. It's something not everybody else does, and I really wanted to see that be the finisher. So I was happy that that's how they ended the match. Throughout the match, though, lots of high spots, tons of flips and dives, and even Austin Aries pulling out some of his real high-risk stuff. You didn't see a lot of that in the last couple weeks. I thought they really introduced Aries to television way too soon as a competitor. I thought they should have left him off TV until he got to WrestleMania. That would have made it so he was more built up for the moment that he was actually going to take part in. But be that as it may, the odds bookers had Neville coming out champion, and they had it right. Neville retains with that beautiful Red Arrow victory at the end, and what a great way to kick off the WrestleMania event. We go next to the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. For me personally, had to be one of the most disappointing battle royals I have ever seen in my entire pro wrestling fandom. You know, you go into the match, Braun Strowman being the heavy favorite. If you're not going to put Braun over, I'm okay with that. If anybody was watching and listening to this podcast a couple episodes ago, I said I wouldn't have had Braun win either. I would have put Sami Zayn over. But if you're going to put Braun over, you got to let him be in the match longer than he was in this one. He got thrown out relatively early, as did the Big Show. Two of the biggest people in the match. You get them thrown out early, and then when you watch this back, I appreciate the interference and the involvement of Rob Gronkowski. I think that brings some mainstream media to a match that otherwise, at that point in the match, had no glitz and no glamour. Sami Zayn got eliminated and it had like no fanfare. Luke Harper, I barely realized he was even in the match until the end of the match. Now I understand that when you're watching a battle royal, typically you have all kinds of melee and craziness early in the match, and you slowly progress to where you're going to have your winner emerge and do whatever you need to do. But this was horrible. Too much, just, you would get the moments where you would get elimination after elimination after elimination, and then you have other times where you're sitting there and you're like, dude, like nobody's been eliminated in 45 seconds. What's going on here? And there's all relatively mid-card talent left at the end of the Battle Royal. Like, I actually, for a moment, thought they might have given Jinder Mahal the win. That's how bad it was at the end. Now, I'm happy for Mojo Rawley. Don't get me wrong. I see there's potential there for him in the future, but I don't think that he was the level of talent that typically wins this thing. I'm a little surprised that they chose to put Mojo Rawley over in this situation. Then again, last year it worked for Baron Corbin. He also, in my opinion, was not ready for the spot that they handed him, but he made the most of it. He made it work really well for him. So hopefully Mojo Rawley can do that too. Otherwise, this match, for me personally, very uneventful. Probably the least important battle royal I've ever seen. But I was happy to see that more wrestlers got in than we had originally anticipated. They were talking about keeping it at 25, and it looked like there were more like 30 to 35 in there when they started the match. It would have been helpful if they actually introduced each person as they came to the ring instead of just Braun and the Big Show and that kind of thing. Cool debut for the NXT stars. You know, the dude from China, Beng, he looked awesome. He looks like he will have a spot. Now he didn't have the kind of ring skill yet that you would expect from a full main roster guy, but this was a great opportunity for him to get some experience, and I'm glad he got that. Moving on. One of the matches that really frustrates me, Dean Ambrose goes from being World Heavyweight Champion, having matches, classic matches, with John Cena and with AJ Styles throughout the year. He has matches with Seth Rollins, with Roman Reigns. The guy has done everything you've asked him to do. And then you have him on the kickoff show, defending the Intercontinental title. Don't get me wrong, I'm happy he kept the title. I think that people are so in such a hurry to push Baron Corbin that all the odds makers had him going over, had him walking out Intercontinental Champion. That championship is the Workhouse Championship. That's the belt you put on the guy who hustles the most. And that right now is Dean Ambrose. He's at every house show. He fills in whenever a main eventer is down with injury. He has done everything from the comedic stuff to the serious stuff, from the Shield to the James Ellsworth. And you gotta commend a guy who's willing to do all those different storylines, despite the fact it's their job. He's willing to do it because he knows, not to be cliche, but it's best for business. And I was happy to see him get the win. However, not on the pre-show. That I thought the kickoff show is where you put the matches that have much less importance. There were people who were in uproar over the SmackDown Women's Championship that when it was supposed to be on the pre-show, it ended up going on second to last. And that match was horrible. All the promised surprises and everything didn't happen. So we'll get to that later. We'll move on to the main show. AJ Styles and Shane McMahon kicking off the show. When I watched it, I was actually frustrated that you put AJ Styles out there first. However, after looking at it and really thinking about it, AJ Styles is a premium draw. He's not the world champion. And Shane McMahon, though he is a draw because he almost never wrestles and because they have built it relatively well, this is a match that was high profile enough, but you didn't want to put on the World Championship or the Universal Championship too early in the show. This show was so stacked, it was hard to figure out where to put what match. So I was okay with AJ and Shane starting the match. Actually, a relatively good competitive match. I know, look, I've seen reactions all over the web today. People who didn't like Shane McMahon's performance. That guy is in his 40s, still hitting that coast-to-coast trash can drop kick off the turnbuckle. You got to give it to the guy, okay? He was never meant to be a professional wrestler. That wasn't his thing. You know, he was being groomed to be a businessman by Vince. And now you're looking at a situation where he's done it. He's brought the house down several times. The chance that you heard during this match, missing the flying elbow off the turnbuckle, you have to attribute a lot of that to Shane McMahon actually having a lot of athleticism that he doesn't get a lot of credit for. I'm not asking him to put on wrist locks and submission holds and, you know, reversing different moves and stuff like that. He did some of the amateur wrestling stuff at the beginning of the match. AJ Styles is poetry in motion. That guy can put a 5-star match together with almost anybody. I'm not going to say this match was 5 stars, but this match was clearly better than what people expected it to be, and AJ Styles came out looking better, not worse. There were some people who were concerned about that. That was not the case. AJ Styles did just fine. So congratulations to them for putting on a match that most people were not into at all, and instead ended up being very entertaining. I love the finish, seeing AJ hit that phenomenal forearm at the end of the match. Got to see Shane go for the shooting star press. I absolutely never would have guessed to see Shane do that. I expected the elbow drop off the turnbuckle. I did not expect a shooting star press, and he almost pulled a Brock Lesnar and landed on his head. I was really appreciative. Shane McMahon is willing to do whatever needs to be done to make the match the best match that could possibly be on the card, and I truly appreciated that. I think I forgot to go over the New Day when they opened the show. Not much to talk about here, except I love Big E making reference to Xavier Woods. You know, the tongue-in-cheek opportunity he had there. I didn't cover a lot about the controversy a few weeks ago because I try to keep it PG here, but that particular moment I found to be thoroughly funny. The fact that, and I'm hoping that was scripted for him, because Big E's got a reputation for going off script and doing his own thing. I'm really hoping that that was planned for him to say what he said, reference to Xavier Woods. Otherwise, the show, the kickoff was fine. New Day, I think, was wasted in this pay-per-view. One of the biggest talents on your card, one of the biggest draws in the company, and you leave them completely off the card as far as a wrestling capacity. So after the AJ match, the match card was so stacked and there were so many good matches. I said on a previous podcast episode, I would have been okay if Kevin Owens and Chris Jericho would have ended the show at one point. Now I understand, now that The Undertaker is talking about leaving the business, you kind of had to put him at the end. But prior to that knowledge, to that, and I'm not going to say they didn't know about that ahead of time, but I felt like it was more concrete in the last week or so. But before that, with everything that the Festival of Friendship and their friendship on camera for the last year has done for WWE, that's something that I would have had no problem with them featuring that as the main event match of the card, even though it was for the United States Championship, because that match wasn't really about a title. That match was about this breakup of this friendship and everything else. So, kudos to them for putting on a phenomenal match. This match was off the chain. For like the first 10 minutes, it felt like Chris Jericho got no offense in, with the exception of opening the match with a quick Walls of Jericho, which would have been ridiculous for him to win that early. So I don't even know why they used that, but I guess you got to get it in there somewhere. But I was actually happy that they allowed them to have some time to develop the match. And to be perfectly honest with you, I was planning on doing a podcast live last night for the first time ever during WrestleMania, and I couldn't do it because my WWE network through my Amazon Fire Stick was not letting me fast forward and get caught up to current time. So I'd have been blogging about live stuff that was already in the past. So I figured I would wait till today when I could try to do this for you guys and make it a little more thorough. But that being said, back to the match itself. Kevin Owens, I feel like going forward, now that Jericho's going to be moving out, I feel like Kevin Owens is strategically in a good position to actually challenge Brock for the championship. My problem with that is that Kevin Owens, now that he has won, I don't even know if we said that, he won the match, takes the United States Championship from Chris Jericho after doing the powerbomb on the outside of the apron. Cool ending segment. I was okay with the way it went down. I thought they rushed the ending just a little bit. It didn't feel like, and that's kind of a common theme throughout this pay-per-view. A lot of times they seem to rush to get things done, and the matches felt like they were really organic, and then all of a sudden fast forward. And so in this particular match, I actually kind of liked the way it ended, just because no one clobbered the other person so bad that you don't want to see a rematch, and at the same time it was a definitive winner. So I was okay with this match. I actually enjoyed this quite a bit. It didn't tear the house down, but decent match nonetheless. By the way, I don't know if anybody's checking out, kicking the old school Brock Lesnar shirt. Got to do that for my first video episode. I bought this, 2003, I think it was. Ran into the guy back at the Marriott Hotel in Philadelphia. Awesome dude. Took great pictures. He actually hung out with the Villanova wrestling team with Kurt Angle that night. I've always had so much respect for Brock. So my first episode, I had to wear a Brock shirt because he's just the man. So moving on. The Raw Women's Championship. I'm just saying. I know I say that a lot. I'm just saying. Thoroughly disappointed. I love the start of it, hated the end of it. You've built Nia Jax up to be this unstoppable force, and in this match you have three of the best women wrestlers in the world jumping her, eliminating her early. I'm okay with that because it keeps her character strong. But when you do that, then you got to follow up with something big with the other three women. These are the women that people have been waiting to see in a triple threat for a very long time. The 3-3 along with Becky Lynch would have been the perfect fatal four-way. That's what everybody's wanted to see. But with these three out there was really an opportunity for Bayley to lose her championship to Sasha Banks and really cultivate a new feud. Now, I expect, and Raw is on right now. While I'm recording this, Raw is on. I've had a long day. I haven't been able to get this recorded quicker, or else I would have had this up a long time ago. I'm not even watching what's happening right now, but I would expect Sasha Banks and Bayley to be the next feud. And if that's the case, why would you not have started that at WrestleMania? Unless you're going to promote somebody like Asuka to the main roster. But I don't like that either. Now, Asuka being the one who took Bayley's championship from her in NXT, there is a storyline there, but right now, I thought there was a lot more natural, organic feel to the Bayley Sasha Banks thing, and I think you could have furthered that by giving the championship to Sasha Banks at WrestleMania. So I was happy with the match. I have a little bit of an issue with Bayley beating Charlotte at the end. I feel like in the last like 3-4 weeks they have totally buried Charlotte. You know, her character was, I said this before, like she's almost unstoppable. I said this on the last podcast episode when I did my predictions. She's been a beast for a year. And now all of a sudden she's lost like 4 or 5 pinfall losses in a row just about. And that's not okay. That's almost like character assassination. So not a big fan of that finish, but I understand it if you're trying to give Bayley her special WrestleMania moment. The one you could have given her had you not had her beat Charlotte at the previous pay-per-view. Just my opinion. We go into the triple threat tag team ladder match for the Raw Tag Team Championships, the long-awaited debut of the Hardy Boys. I actually like the way they introduced the Hardys because it made it look like, I mean, if you weren't a smart mark who already knew the Hardys were coming, especially after Sunday morning, somebody broke that picture that had the black vehicle, the official WWE vehicle outside the Hardys compound where they were holding their independent event. If that hadn't happened and people still were wondering if this was going to happen, this was done really well because it made it sound like the New Day was going to come to the ring, which I actually would have been okay with that as well. I'd much rather the Hardys gone to SmackDown, not Raw. I've said that before as well. But they still, Team Extreme, we didn't get to see the broken characters. I hope that lawsuit gets rectified and that the Hardy Boys get control of their characters so that can be introduced at a later date. This way you got some nostalgia feel from the Team Extreme stuff. I can't believe it at his age, Jeff Hardy's still hitting swantons off the top of a ladder the way he does. Absolutely insane. You know, that was part of the thing I thought was why he didn't want to go back to WWE is because of those insane spots that he's known for. I loved seeing it. It was total throwback, old school Jeff Hardy. Watching the Hardy Boys walk out with the Raw Tag Team Championship, I had no problem with it. I'm not a huge fan of Enzo and Cass anyways, and they were the favorites to win the match. So I'm kind of happy that somebody else won. I really didn't want to see Enzo and Cass. I feel like Enzo really doesn't add much to the team, and Cass is a guy who kind of is being held back because he's aligned with Enzo. I couldn't believe that they cleared Sheamus to wrestle with that giant gash over his eye with all those stitches. Cesaro looked awesome as always. Gallows and Anderson actually looked really good. They looked like old school New Japan in this match. They really threw it down. So solid match. Decent ladder match. Not as much use of the ladder as I would like. You know how in some years they do that thing where they always like make these crazy structures with the ladders and position things in the turnbuckles and so-and-so's running up a ramp and jumping on somebody. Like they did none of that. But I was okay with the way this match went just because I felt like it breathed some life into the tag team division, at least on Raw, if not on SmackDown. So, moving on. The Miz, Maurice, you already knew they were going to lose. I have a problem with that because I think they've meant more to SmackDown than John Cena or Nikki Bella has. If you remember, Nikki Bella was embroiled in that like 10-week nonsensical feud with Natalya that nobody cared to see. John Cena is Mr. Part-Timer. I don't care what he says in his promos leading up to the Rumble in January. He's a part-timer. Okay, he's almost never there. He's leaving again. He's going to be gone for another 5-6 months. Filming, 4 movies he's got coming out this year? I have a problem with that. So I didn't want to see John Cena win. And I'm not even a Miz fan. I don't even like The Miz. I like his character, and I like what he's done for the business over the last year. But I'm not a huge Miz guy. I'm just not. And this could have been so much more. This could have been a launching pad for Miz and Maurice going into the rest of the year, while John Cena and Nikki Bella, potentially both of them could be off TV for a significant portion of time. Nikki Bella potentially for good. You know, she's had some issues with her neck, and she may be looking to hang up the tights. So I don't understand this. I don't understand the booking of this. But we expected it. Very short match. Good for Maurice. She still looked like she could move in the ring. John Cena and The Miz, they entertain. That's what they do. They're never going to be the greatest technical wrestlers ever, but they were entertaining. You got to wonder, though, a couple years ago, the two of them were headlining WrestleMania for the World Championship. Miz coming out the winner in that, even though it was a count out or whatever. But this didn't feel generic. Didn't feel genuine. It felt very generic. It felt like, let's just get him out there, get the match over with so John Cena can propose. As he did, propose to Nikki Bella, which of course she accepted. I actually have an issue with this. The buddies I was hanging out with watching the show, we talked about this. This is their real life. Now, I know some people are like, oh, this is all a gimmick or something like that. They're getting married, okay? They're engaged. Now, if they break up, I'll agree with you people. It's totally a work. But right now, it looks like they're getting married. And if they're getting married, her big moment, being proposed to by her husband, spoiled by wrestling smart marks who want to report everything there is to report. There's things I could report that I don't. If you guys listen to my podcast, you know I report on European style, Australian wrestling, South Africa. I try to go elsewhere and not always include every little tidbit that's out in the wrestling news here in the United States, because some of this stuff is their private life. I'm not that guy. I don't want to invade everybody's space. Whatever. They're going to get married. More power to them. Let them be the happy couple. I'm not a big John Cena guy. I'm just not. We have the big match that many of us were waiting for. Again, a match that was finished the night, main event quality, potentially, is the Triple H Seth Rollins match. Now, I was actually very disappointed in one respect and thoroughly blown away in another. So I'll get to the good stuff first. Thoroughly blown away because Triple H took the clean, uninterrupted pinfall victory, or gave, I should say, the pinfall victory to Seth Rollins. Said there's no outside interference. He got Stephanie up on an apron, which I love seeing her take the bump off the apron through the table, which looked like she hit pretty hard, and then she sold it for forever, which kudos to Stephanie. But I really was proud of WWE booking that they didn't have somebody come out and interfere. In a feud that you've built up for the better part of 2 years, you really needed this to be a legitimate, just... It's got to be the end of that, at least in its current form. Get Triple H out of the way. Now Seth Rollins can feud with Samoa Joe, who, the other side that I was saying, the disappointment side, Samoa Joe was nowhere on the card. If you weren't going to have him run out and attack during Triple H's match, put him into the Battle Royal. Do something with him. He's the Samoan bulldozer. He's your, whatever, your essentially, he's the new beast, which, by the way, just an early prediction. I predict he is the next one who's going to end up challenging Brock if it's not Kevin Owens. I'd be very okay with that because that was theorized to be a Mania match this year anyway. So I would love to see Joe and Brock. But before I get off track, let's get back to what I'm supposed to be talking about. This match, all the high spots, all the physicality. Seth Rollins didn't look like he had any issues with the mobility. Multiple missed pedigrees. Several times they hit the pedigree, kickouts. This was a solid match top to bottom. And the most impressive thing about the match is, I remember watching the Shawn Michaels, I think it was the Boyhood Dream DVD documentary, and Triple H talks about when Shawn Michaels came back and wanted to have one more match with him. And they did that match at SummerSlam. He said, I can't imagine a guy being gone for 5 years and coming back and it being like he didn't miss a day. And he said, I know I couldn't do that. Well, Triple H doesn't go away for 5 years, but he wrestles like once a year. And he looks good. I know there's people who hate Triple H, but Triple H looked good last night. He looked like one, obviously, as always, he's in shape. 2, his timing is still impeccable. As Hulk Hogan said, timing impeccable. It is. The guy is just, whether you like him, hate him, that's up to you, but he is one of the greatest wrestlers, one of the greatest workers in the history of the business. And I'm not saying that because I like Triple H either, because I'm not a Triple H guy. I'm a diehard AJ Styles fan. I'm a Brock fan. I'm not a Triple H guy, but I give the devil his due. Triple H, he's the man, the way he can still perform with his limited schedule he runs each year. Moving on from that match, one of the more disappointing outcomes of the night. I know the bookers were saying that Randy Orton was going to win the World Championship. I knew that going into the pay-per-view. That doesn't mean I wanted to see it. Bray Wyatt has waited forever to get the World Championship. He finally gets it. When do you have it? A month? Month and a half? Not even, really? So we've waited all this time for Bray Wyatt to get the World Championship. You finally give it to him, and you have to take it off him at WrestleMania. Out of WrestleMania, you already know AJ Styles is going to be right back in the World Championship picture. And if he's not, if they do move him to Raw, which is the theory that may happen, and Roman Reigns gets moved to SmackDown, now you got Roman Reigns and Randy Orton, which has been done before. Bray Wyatt did not get a legitimate chance to carry the championship, and he needed it. His character needed it. You sacrificed him to The Undertaker before you should have. Instead of letting Brock end the streak, Bray Wyatt would have been a better choice. He's got a much longer future with the company, I'm sure. You've buried him with people like Daniel Bryan and John Cena and Chris Jericho. This would have been an opportunity. He beats Randy Orton at WrestleMania. You establish him as the man for the foreseeable future. Let him have a long run with the title. AJ Styles just did an amazing job with the long run with the championship. It lends credibility to the championship. This does not for me. This a legitimate star, Bray Wyatt. And what was the point of all the video imposed maggots and worms and crickets or locusts or whatever they were? What was the point of that if you weren't going to roll it into anything? Where's Sister Abigail? We've been waiting for Sister Abigail for 5 years. Bring the girl out. Eric Rowan's been cleared for ring action for forever. I'm not a big fan of outside interference at WrestleMania, but I'd have been okay with Eric Rowan coming out if it meant Bray Wyatt keeping the championship. I don't want to see Randy Orton as world champion right now. He's had it too many times. I'm ready to move on to something else. Bray Wyatt was the something else. And I think there is so much more to be done with Bray Wyatt and AJ Styles. And now that's probably going to be put on the back burner for maybe sometime in the future. So I digress because I get stressed out even thinking about it. The Universal Championship match. You knew it was going to be short. But I said this when I did my predictions. Brock Lesnar left World Wrestling Entertainment to become a mixed martial artist. Goldberg has been practicing Muay Thai for forever. He has a mixed martial arts background. You could have easily parlayed that into some ground and pound and some real back and forth just grappling and made this match seem like a legitimate fight and not just a bunch of high spots. 4 spears. All right, so this is the first time they meet. 2 spears puts Brock away. This time he gets 4 spears, including one through a barricade wall outside, and he can't put him away. He gets a jackhammer and 4 spears. On the flip side, you got Goldberg getting hit with, what is it, a dozen, suplexes, taking him to Suplex City, hitting an F5 and getting the pin. The grand total amount of time that Goldberg spent in the ring in this entire run has got to be under 10 minutes. And that's sad because he is capable of so much more. And the problem is this is the Booker's fault. Because in WCW, there were several matches where where Goldberg had to get in the ring and actually wrestle it out a little bit. People all infamously refer to the William Regal match. That's one match. There were other matches where he had to take an ankle lock or, take a guy down and hold him into some kind of wear down hold. Goldberg is able to do that stuff. I feel like the bookers here in WWE forgot that, and all they think about is jackhammer spear. And that's not all there is to Goldberg. They really wasted an opportunity here. They could have gone 12 to 15 minutes and given him some ground and pound and some grappling and made this match seem much more legitimate. As everybody expected, Brock Lesnar walks out world champion. My guy, Brock Lesnar, this guy right here. Yeah. Walks out Universal Champion. More power to him. I just hope he's more visible this time with the championship than he was last time with the championship. I don't believe Raw should have one episode without their world champion. That's just my opinion. Some people disagree. I know Paul Heyman thinks the Universal title is it's a special attraction thing. You don't have to see it all the time. I disagree. It's not 1985. It's not 1996 where other things were built up to the same level. Back in the day, you could have the Road Warriors headline a show, and it was okay if Ric Flair wasn't there. You can't do that now. You gotta have your world champion. So I hope Brock is committed to many more dates this time around as champion than he was last time. Moving on, the SmackDown Women's Championship match. This one of the biggest disappointments for me of the night because they had hyped up all these women coming in: Kelly, Eva Marie, Victoria Maria Kanellis, Lita, like all these rumors of all these former people, and even there's a little piece of me that was kind of hoping Beth Phoenix, now that she's been inducted, would have shown up for the match. And they would have had more than the 6 women for this 6-pack challenge. I had a problem with that. I didn't like the way they booked that. Now, the match itself, look, it was one of 2 people who was going to win that. Either James Ellsworth was going to cost somebody the match and Carmella was going to walk out champion, but she's not ready for it. Or you were going to give the belt right back to Naomi after you had plans for her before. Her injury, I question the injury because when she comes out to do her entryway all down that enormously long aisleway, she came out and she's like sliding on her knees and jumping and hopping. And look, man, I don't know about you, but if I just came off of knee injury, I wouldn't be doing all that heading into the biggest match of the year. You blow out your knee and now you can't have your big WrestleMania moment. Just my opinion. So in the end, decent match for what it is. It wasn't given very much time. I remember last night we're sitting there, we looked at the clock, we're like, dude, there's only about 40 minutes left in the show, and we still got Randy Orton, we got Goldberg, we got the women, and we got The Undertaker. What is going to happen here? We're going to cram 4 matches into 40 minutes, and they found a way to do it. This match didn't go long, didn't need to. Ellsworth getting involved was hilarious, watching Becky Lynch give him the suplex. She slapped him around like he was her stepchild, but it was funny. But just a little disappointed. Not enough surprises last night. That's really what it boils down to. There was so many surprises talked about, and pretty much none of them, other than the Hardys, nothing significant happened on the surprise level. No shock value. No appearance of Stone Cold or The Rock or Hulk Hogan. Nobody like that. No special surprise superstars. No Mick Foley interference. No Samoa Joe. No return of Finn Balor. I know you want to hype up the Raw after WrestleMania, but you could have done a whole lot more than what they did. And the show is still 7 hours long, so whatever. Going into the main event, The Undertaker versus Roman Reigns. I'm going to try to keep this as journalistic as I can. Roman Reigns, we knew was going to win the match, if you agree with the booking odds makers. I'm not a fan of doing that. I honestly, I would not have had him lose. I know this is probably Undertaker's decision personally. He's really been wanting to push Roman Reigns. He wanted to be there for Roman Reigns. I get it, but this didn't feel right. This didn't feel like it just wasn't the right moment. You know, Roman Reigns, they were trying to sell the whole, almost like the Shawn Michaels when he ended Ric Flair's career. They tried to pull that angle, and it just doesn't work. That's not Roman Reigns. That's not his character. And I have a tough time with a guy, The Undertaker, who has survived the Great Khali and Batista bombs and spears from Edge and all these superstars, Randy Orton, like all these things that he survived throughout his career at WrestleMania. You know, even Brock Lesnar, he got up from several F5s before he finally went down. You know, you have him lose to a guy who bounced off the ropes 4 times and hits a spear. Now, I know, okay, look, he waffled him with the chair a bunch of times. He hit a few other spears. That happens every WrestleMania. The two sides hit several versions of their finishing hole before somebody actually wins. This felt weak to me. I wanted to see another tombstone. I wanted to see the last ride a second time. I would have liked to have seen anything more than what I did. It just, I'm not knocking the match because I actually think when you think about the fact that The Undertaker, when he returned to the Royal Rumble, did not look like he was ready to go. He looked relatively weak and out of shape, and it looked like he was in a lot of pain. And then when he came back to Raw, did the choke slam, and he was grimacing in pain. I was a little worried that he wasn't going to be able to go in the ring for WrestleMania. And then I thought he put on a very enjoyable match. I didn't like the finish. I felt like they rushed the finish. But other than that, I felt like they put on a great story. They really did tell a story. I don't necessarily agree with the story, but I love that they told one. And then at the end of the match, you know, for those, they're friends of mine who didn't even see the end of the show. They turned their TiVos or their satellite dishes or their cable boxes off after he lost because they were irritated that he lost. And then you got to miss the beautiful moment, The Undertaker saying goodbye. Undertaker never wants to break character. That's one of the things that's made him so legendary, I think, in his career. But in this situation, he did the traditional wrestling thing, leaving the gloves, leaving the hat and the coat in the ring, which people woke up today and found out there was a picture posted online that a producer actually took pictures half hour or so after everybody left the arena and his coat and stuff was still sitting there. Very symbolic. I wish Mark Calloway nothing but success and happiness in his outside of wrestling endeavors. I understand he's 56 years old, but this match proves something that I don't think a lot of people expected going into the match. The Undertaker can still go, and I don't mean a little bit. I mean a lot. The Undertaker, mad skills, even at 56 years old. He's as good or better than half the roster. And it's a sin that the guy's got so many hip issues, he's going to have to leave based on a hip surgery. And I understand once you have one of those, you really don't want to be taking bumps off your hip and stuff. But I hope he does spot appearances, not necessarily in a match, but just show up and chokeslam somebody here and there, because that was a sad thing to see someone who as a child I idolized as one of the coolest characters in World Wrestling Entertainment, and to see him go out. I mean, I would like to have seen him go out as a winner, not as the guy looking up at the lights. But that being said, awesome end to the pay-per-view. Get to see him go over and kiss Michelle McCool after the loss, walk out of the ring. I love how they did the lowering and raising and lowering of that platform to bring him in and out of the arena. He looked genuinely emotionally moved that it was over. So cool way to end the show. For anybody who doesn't know, there was some pyrotechnic issues on the stage and they actually caught fire after they went off the air. That's funny. You know, you can put all that stuff together, all these things going off, shooting off, the roller coaster backdrops and all that, and you catch fire at the end of the show. Very cool. But overall, if I was going to rate this WrestleMania, pretty good, pretty solid show. Not the best show I've ever seen, and I feel like it went significantly too long, way too much talking, way too much build up and in between stuff. It was like 35 minutes from the kickoff from the start of WrestleMania till the first match actually got in the ring. That's ridiculous. I understand you have your panels to discuss different things and the New Day segments, but that was too much. 4 hours. Keep it to 4 hours. We don't need 7 hours of wrestling in one night. And if you're going to do 7 hours, I saw somebody suggest this. I think it was the Wrestling Inc. podcast. It said, put it over 2 days. Stop doing this all in one day. If you want to put that much out there, look, WWE Universe is going to love it. Start selling 2-day combo passes and put the show on over 2 days. Expand it the way it needs to be expanded. Don't do what they did last night. 7 hours is too much. Getting done at midnight is just obnoxious for me. I didn't get done until after 1 in the morning because I had issues with my Fire Stick, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. So just a couple suggestions for WWE Brass. By all means, take a look at that for next year. We don't need 7 hours. We need quality wrestling, quality matches, quality booking, and we need to write people out there at different times. So that is all the time we have for this episode. Thank you so much for tuning in for our first video episode. I really appreciate that. I saw we have now reached people in 76 countries around the world, which for me, for those who don't know me, I'm a social studies guy. You know, that's what I do in my professional life. I'm a teacher, and to see 76 countries, I actually had my students in class mark out on a huge map where all my viewers are around the world. Thank you going out to all those people who tune into the Pro Wrestling Podcast. You guys mean the world. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. And by all means, please click the subscribe button. And here's the thing. I am so thankful. I got so many people now following me on Twitter that have never followed me before. I would love to see you guys follow me on YouTube. That way you get instant updates whenever I post something new. So by all means, please shoot over to the YouTube link for this and click subscribe. And hit that button in the corner for instant notifications so the minute my stuff comes out, you can get updated and know that it's time to go check out a new episode of the Pro Wrestling Podcast. Until next episode, by all means, shoot over to our website, www.frolifeplanning.com. I want to help you get into college, get a new career, get whatever it is that you want to get. And I need to do that for Fro Life Planning. Every day of the week that I get to help somebody, it really is making an impact on someone's life. And I want to do that for as many people as possible. Shoot me a message on there. There's a link you can send me a direct email. If you have questions for me, give them to me. I want to cover the stuff that you guys are excited about. Till next episode, guys, take care, and thank you for tuning into the first video episode.